Speak now to the commentator Lesley Riddoch, who voted for Scotland to become an independent country. She joins me now from Glasgow. We've already heard from Nicola Sturgeon this morning, and you look at her, you look at Theresa May, you see two powerful women who have the full backing of their own parties, both very confident, but that's probably where the similarities sort of end, is it?
Well, yes, and unfortunately, because Theresa May is a bit frit of having a debate with the likes of Nicola, we won't actually see the two of them in action sparring together, which would be quite a sight. But I mean, I'm actually sitting here staggered at what I've just heard. A Tory MP saying that the aim of this election is to get a result that would allow the voices of the SNP to be silenced in the Commons. This is an extraordinary affront to democracy. There are 56 out of 59 MPs elected by the Scots, SNP MPs, to go to Westminster. That's a huge statement. Of course, it's meant absolutely nothing. The 62% of us who voted to stay in the EU meant absolutely nothing. The vote of the Scottish Parliament to have a second independence referendum when all the details of Brexit are known, absolutely nothing. So you've got to ask, what possible outcome can the Scots come up with that will make the blindest bit of difference to what Theresa May has already decided to do, which seems to be, with the aid of some of the national press, to suggest that anybody who questions any aspect of her Brexit deal is somehow a saboteur. I mean, this is really seriously democratically worrying, and I think that's the sort of line Nicola Sturgeon will be pushing all the way from here on in.
Where does this call for the general election leave the second referendum?
Well, it's still up in the air. It can obviously be brought in. It will be a very firm part, I'm sure, of the SNP and Green manifestos here in Scotland. And that will, restate that there is a desire to have that escape route from Brexit, should it be as calamitous as many predict. But it probably will also be what the SNP are going for in this referendum. It'll strangely be the rival parties who will be talking about independence. The SNP aren't ready, I think, to go for a full case for independence in 7 weeks flat. They've been working on their ideas about currency and various other things, but they're not going to jump to Theresa May's tune and have to prematurely get into that debate when they're not ready for it, and when their case is really about the democratic right to have that second referendum.
Lesley, when the history of this period is written, will it write that actually the cause of Scottish independence was strengthened by this call for a general election at this point in the May premiership?
I think it will. I mean, we heard from Theresa May in a really patronising way a couple of weeks ago only that the time for Scotland to have a second referendum was not now. And the message of what's just happened and the about turn is that it's not now for the Scottish government, but it's always now for the Westminster government. It's just two different standards of fairness, and these are meant to be equals. There's meant to be some sort of mutual respect going on between the nations that make up the UK, and actually that's been smashed to bits, not just for Scotland, but for Northern Ireland that currently doesn't have a government, and for local government elections that now don't seem to matter at all to the Conservatives, which will place the Conservatives in Scotland in a really dicky situation.
Lesley Riddoch, thank you very much for joining us this morning.